This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Delighted to be here, and especially delighted to welcome in our next guest. He is Jimbo Fisher. By now, you've gotten used to us saying he's the new coach at Texas A&M. Debuted a new look and a new enthusiasm at the spring game and a record crowd, and we are delighted to get a report from the man who knows more than most. Coach Fisher, thank you very, very much for joining us. Let's go back to the game on Saturday. Just the crowd itself had to be heartwarming to you and your staff.
It really was. I mean, it was like a celebration of when you get to come back to A&M, have a good time. You know Texas A&M is going to win, so it's a fun game. We had almost over 300 ex-players back. They played, participated, got to meet a lot of those guys and the tradition they had here in the past, and it was just an overall great weekend. And I thought it was great for our fans to see our players. Our players played a very competitive, good game for them, and them to celebrate it, and we're there to support them. I think it was very good.
I want to start with the celebration before the game and bringing people back. And there's always a debate when a new coach comes in about welcoming, but you've welcomed everyone. We've seen Johnny Manziel around there quite a bit. He's not the only one. I'm interested in your attitude and philosophy about that.
Well, I mean, your history and tradition. You are those folks played here. They had their blood, sweat, and tears into this place. They love it. They helped build the facilities and the things we had here and the traditions we've had here at Texas A&M. And for them not to be able to come back and feel at home in a family atmosphere, to me, it's silly. And we love having them back. They're always a part of this family. Welcome them, more than welcome to come back and see us at any time. And to me, we're all one happy family, and you have to be. You have to embrace your history to be able to go through and go to your future.
And you've been in a lot of great schools from LSU to Auburn, obviously FSU. But talk about this school. You were familiar with it, but I'm sure you had no idea the tradition and history.
No, I didn't. And like I say, it's one of the best kept secrets in the world. I mean, the history here, that I've never seen a place. I mean, everybody loves their school and it's tremendous alum, but the people here truly give back. They live the cultures in which we talk about, the traditions, the histories, and it's a very, very unique place, and it's an extreme. They're very helpful. They love the place, and like I say, as I start to research it, it's amazing, from the academic world to the athletic world, and into the people and what they stand for. It's an amazing place.
Let's start. Okay, well, I think we all agree on that. Let's talk about some things that maybe some fans don't agree on, but you're the coach.
Okay.
Starting with quarterback. So what are your thoughts?
I like what Nick and Miss Mon did on the spring. I thought both progressed very well. Both have different skill sets, but both have they're more similar than they are separate. Everybody thinks because Mon runs a little better, but Nick can scramble, make plays. But they got to beat you with their mind, and that's where they started the second half of spring, really understanding how to be decision makers. I thought you saw that in the spring game. I thought both guys played very well. Nick made one mistake, but he made a ton of big plays in what he did. Mon, he played really well. Kellen did, and he didn't get frustrated. What I loved, his team didn't move the ball early. He didn't get frustrated, didn't make mistakes, and then when he had chances to make plays, he capitalized on those and had 3 great touchdown throws and played very well. So I think we got a great competition going on. We're just now scratching the surface of what they can do and understanding why they have to do what they do as our quarterback, and I think we're in great shape at the quarterback position.
So, Coach, as these two young men leave spring, I'm sure you've got plenty of ideas that you want to give them. What do they need to do in the rest of the school year and obviously in the summer that you'll be satisfied when we meet again in late summer?
Not only physically get their bodies and do the conditioning and the throwing and all that stuff, but they got to understand the whys of the game. Why you would declare protection that way. Why would you make that read? Why would you throw the ball there? Why would you not throw the ball there? Why would you check that run? I think the whys of the game are what makes the quarterback, allows him to do his job. Because he can process the game, be able to make the decisions in the run game and the pass game, and get the ball to the appropriate people. Now they've had a large enough sampling of our offense and what we want them to do. And then, to me, the whys of the game. Why, when I go into fall camp, I understand why we're doing everything, and that's going to allow their true talents to come out.
You've had Heisman Trophy winners. You've had great teams and championships. What do they need to do mind-wise? I mean, is it film? Is it preparation? Is it repetition? Because there's only so much you can keep your mind on your mind and eyes on them in the off season.
The answer to that is all yes. But at the same time, picture yourself winning the SEC. Picture yourself winning the national championship and expect it. So when those opportunities come on, they don't shock you. I mean, if you can't picture something in your mind and believe it, you can never achieve it. And I know that's a cliche, but it's the truth. You have to look at yourself differently. And then, are you willing to do things other people aren't willing to do as far as extra film work, extra study time? And more importantly, we tell them, understand who you are as a player. What kind of team are we? And we have to play to that kind of team on offense, on defense, and on special teams. In our strengths, we have to bring out as much as we can. Our weaknesses, we have to improve, but don't put ourselves in a position where we're counting on those. And then try to understand who we are as a football team.
How is it different as you get to the rest of your team? Because, I mean, those are the quarterbacks, but you have a lot of positions still up for grabs.
They are. The offensive line, we got the good quality depth we have there, but all those positions have to understand. And like even the wideouts, now you want to run a route to catch the ball, but sometimes I got to run a route to open up another guy. Understand the concepts and what we're trying to achieve on each play, and then how each play situationally changes, whether it's first down, whether it's third down, whether it's red zone, whether it's the last 2 minutes of the game or 2 minutes of the half. Understanding all those little whys at your position also. And I think, we have good depth across the board. I mean, I like our team. We need more depth at certain positions, but we have enough there. And then with the young freshman class coming in and then what we're recruiting, I love what we're going. That you can, like I say, the reasons I came here, I can see the future here. I really can. And what we can do, it's just a matter of us getting it done.
Coach, let me move on to you. I know you prefer talking about your team, but this has been a breakneck couple of months. And it's not over yet, but what do you do now? I mean, there's obviously a lot to do, but is there a transitional period? Because certainly, I'm sure you're still running on fumes.
We are, but the big thing, you got official visits coming in now. That's a new thing in spring. We had a bunch last week. We have some this week. We'll have some next week. Getting guys in the spring that to fill out that official visit. Getting players evaluated in the next 3 classes to know what kind of class you have. Also setting the tone for the off season with these players. You have individual meetings to set your strengths, your weaknesses, what you need to do, how you need to do it. We'll break each player down individually. They'll meet with their coaches. They'll meet with me. And then getting out on the road in our speaking tour to our 12th man groups and our booster groups and all the different people and sending our message of what A&M is going to be in the future. And then you have all your meetings in the SEC. So, as a head coach right now, it's a very, very busy schedule, but it keeps you going.
I want to close on talking about the 12th man because
yes.
New coaches often when they go out, I mean, they're in demand everywhere, and Texas
yes.
is a big state. But what is your message to the fan base of Texas A&M?
We want to build the program. We want to win now. We want to be successful, but we want to put things in position for us to be good in the long term, do things the right way, understand where this game is going, put things in position for these players to be successful as people, then as students, then as players, so they can grow. And then the giving back. That's one thing here. The job placements and the thing that Texas A&M and that Aggie family does for these players afterwards, that we have to enhance that. We have to send the message of who we want to be, and we have to believe it and support it in every way, shape, and form. And then, understand that, we got a process to go through, and if the process is right, the results will be there. And this is a long-term deal, not just a short-term deal. But at the same time, we want to have success now.
Finally, coaches of all different kinds don't really like to talk about expectations because
yes.
That's not something you can control. But they're already out of hand at A&M
exactly.
because you are there. I mean, you were quite a catch for them. How do you deal with that component?
Well, first of all, I always say I wouldn't want to be here if we didn't have expectations. You want to be somewhere where you have a chance to win national championships and put all the things in place that you want to do, which at the other places we had that too, but I think this is a very unique place. And what you have to do is you don't have to worry about me, just like I tell our players, don't worry about the results. Stay true to the process. If we keep doing the right things, we will put things in place from a recruiting base, from a personal base, from a discipline base, from accountability base, and then we'll get the right players to go where we want to go. Not that we can't do it now, but you have to stay process-oriented, just like you tell the players. Don't worry about the results. Live in the now. Live where your feet are. Be where your feet are, and do what you have to do.
Coach, thanks for making time. Always great to see you.
Paul, thank you very much.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
I was in Georgia yesterday, as I mentioned at the top, and I saw a sign that said Gainesville that way. Came close to dropping by Matt's house, but
why didn't you come, Paul? I mean, I was going to come down. I'm going to Athens tomorrow, but
yeah, no, we got out of there in time. But it was, I tell you what, the place was buzzing, and thought of you.
Did you get to eat? Did you get to go out to eat anywhere, or did y'all just eat right there?
We actually grabbed something pretty quickly. We did not have much time, so.
Have you ever been to the Last Resort?
I've heard of it. I have not been there. No.
You need to go there and get. That's the best place out of the best place. But the other day you were like you didn't like the call him that. I had people telling me I was just another boring caller.
Well, there's a fine line on this show, Matt, between genius and insanity. And I think when you're a motor mouth like you are, and you're always trashing Alabama and trashing other people, and then you suddenly become Johnny from Coleman, you lose your mojo.
It's businessman Matt, professional Matt, and it's UGA Saturday Matt. So I will say Peter Burns ran a great show yesterday. Not much bias, but I kind of missed all.
Matt, just for the record, I did not hear any or see any of the show, but I am told that with PB here yesterday, you called in and trashed me. What did you say?
No, I just said there wasn't as much bias.
As much bias or bite?
Yeah. Bias. It wasn't an Alabama network. I didn't trash you. I just said he didn't wear Alabama underwear like you do. That's all I said. That's not trashing you. That's the truth. You've already told me that Alabama signs your paycheck. You told me that, right?
Well, I went to the one of the supply stores in Athens yesterday looking for the national championship underwear. I couldn't find any. I did find one that was 38 years old. But I thought,
you're funny, Paul. That is so funny. Paul, what are you going to do, just in reality, if Georgia becomes national champions and dominates, like I'm predicting, what's going to happen? And I also read a rumor that they may move you to Atlanta. Would you wouldn't let that happen, would you, Paul? To Atlanta?
Actually, I'm going to be in Atlanta Monday. What's the rumor again?
I read an article that they may, and this might be a couple months back, that they were thinking about building a studio at the College Hall of Fame, next to College Football Hall of Fame.
Well, that story emanated from us doing the show at the College Football Hall of Fame.
I got you. But they'll keep you. You're not going anywhere. You're saying.
Matt, I tell you, I like Atlanta. I think it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's got a lot of different things, but it's got a lot of different things. Atlanta's cool. It's got the Braves, Falcons.
And the thing I like the most about Atlanta?
What?
It's closer to Tuscaloosa than where I am now.
Why would you want to go there, Paul?
To see the 17 national championship trophies.
You get to pass by lovely Talladega. What a great place. So
no, I mean, no. Every April and October, about 190,000 people show up there.
Do y'all count that one that vacated in '95, the one that they took away with Gene Stallings?
Gene Stallings didn't have a national championship taken away from him, Matt.
But he went on probation, right?
He did, but he didn't lose the '92 national championship.
How many times has Alabama?
Hey, do you know who I interviewed yesterday while I was over there?
Elijah?
I interviewed a number of people, but I spent about 45 minutes with a very interesting man. And you know what made this man stand out in Athens, Georgia?
I have no idea.
Because he actually has a national championship ring.
In 1980. Who'd you interview, Herschel?
Vince Dooley.
Vince Dooley. He's a great man.
He is a great man.
One of the greatest.
And you know what he said to me after the interview? He said, Paul, I've always admired your show, but who in the blank is that Matt guy?
He knows. He actually served on the board of Eagle Ranch for my grandfather.
I know who you Matt, let's cut to the chase here, okay? I know who you are. I asked around in Athens. I know who your daddy is. I know who your granddaddy is. So I know the family, okay?
Paul, don't be... I can't wait. You'll remember me.
No. I mean, you aren't just some lunch bucket guy that calls in. I mean, you're among the chosen class in Georgia. We know who. Matt, I know who you are now. Okay, so don't try to con me.
You're being a journalist, man. I respect that, Paul.
No, I decided I just needed to go to work and find out who you were, and we found out.
I did say this today. Someone told me at the local breakfast place, I'll call them out, Long Street Cafe in Gainesville, they're going to get me a picture, and they're going to let me sign it, and they're going to, Matt from Gainesville, they're going to put me up next to Deshaun Watson. He's also another famous Gainesvillian. I don't think I'll ever make Deshaun's status, but, so he was the biggest miss in Georgia history ever. God, why?
Well, so far, I mean, there may be another guy at Clemson that could rank as a bigger one.
Nah, we wanted Fields. I've heard all that, but we Deshaun, I mean, that was the man, God, and he was a bulldog. That kid had bulldog gear, and you probably saw the famous tweet where he said what Mike Bobo, when he was about to go to the draft, he said, just think Mike Bobo said I wasn't good for playing Georgia's offense. Laugh out loud, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, Matt, to sober up, because quit taking the Quaaludes, because you really, I don't know if this down Matt really works. You know who I've missed talking to? I miss talking to Buckeye Earl, because every time Ohio State fails to win the national championship, I get a big chuckle out of this guy screaming his mouth about how great Ohio State is and how bad Alabama is. What do you say, Buckeye?
Hey, Paul. Yesterday, Paul, Peter Burns worried about Ohio State overrated. He don't need to be worried about Ohio State. He worried about the SEC, Paul. He need to be worried about Ohio State. Penn State, the one that is overrated. That's who he picked to win the Big Ten. He don't worry about Ohio State because we just fine. We going all the way this year.
Hey, Buckeye, help me with something, okay? Buckeye, come on. Hey, listen, we don't need this. I mean, when's the last time you guys won a championship?
The what?
When's the last time you guys won a national championship?
Alabama.
And what has Alabama done since then?
Because y'all did not play us. Georgia would have had any kind of sense. They would have beat y'all. You know what their G stand for on Georgia helmet, Paul? You know what their G stand for on Georgia helmet? Garbage. That's what they is. Garbage. They had y'all beat last year. I was mad as hell. They had y'all beat. Boy. Hey,
Buckeye Earl, will you do me the honor of answering me this one question?
Yes.
Because I can't find it anywhere. Last October, I believe it was, Ohio State went to Iowa City and played Iowa. Do you remember the score? Remember the score of that game, Buckeye? What was it, 31-2? What was it? Does anyone remember?
Don't even start that, Paul. Don't even start that. But, Paul, let me say this, though, Paul.
55. Hey, Earl. How about this score? 55-24. Your Buckeyes lost to a high school team. A high school team, Buckeye. Your great coach, Urban Meyer, couldn't beat Iowa. Couldn't beat them. Couldn't come within 30 points.
We beat Urban in the last 50 years. Anything can happen on any day at times. Our first time to beat us.
Hey, Buckeye, have you been to an ENT lately for that choke job?
Paul, like I just said, Paul, I want Alabama to make it, but I doubt it.
Earl, you're a joker. Earl, give it up, man. Listen, we don't need to hear this.
Little Johnny. Penn State ain't got nothing. Y'all lost everything, little Johnny. Hey,
Buckeye, you go to TCU. Buckeye, you go to TCU this year. You go to Penn State, which will beat you again. You know that.
In Dallas.
You lost them 2 years ago. Lucky to beat them this year. Lucky.
Lucky? Who lucky?
You'll lose to Scott Frost at Nebraska. You're done. Forget it, Buckeye. Give it up. Wave the white flag. Steve is up next in Detroit. How are you, Steve?
My goodness gracious. It's been almost a year. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Thanks for calling.
Well, I wanted to know about this Mississippi State and these transfers. Is the Patterson the only one that's being denied transfership, or are all the players that want to transfer out of that quagmire being denied their transfer?
I think some got out. His was a little more complicated.
Can you tell me why? I'm trying to read between the lines, and there's a lot of gray areas I don't understand.
Well, I think ultimately he'll be allowed. And I think he should be.
Oh yeah, it's hurting him. I mean, I don't know why they're putting up the hassle with this thing. It should be all about the player being able to play and continue his resume to further his career.
We agree.
Okay, and secondly about the scheduling, between Georgia and Alabama, they don't pass the eye test. I have to tell you, Alabama plays LSU. They were rated number 18 at the end of the schedule. Mississippi State at 19. And
hold on a second, Steve. Are we talking last year or this year?
No, I hate to do this because I'm not a prognosticator who's going to the way they were lined up last year, is about how they were rated and stuff like that. Everything changes. It's almost a day-by thing until you get like 4 or 5 games into the season. But when you look at their schedule, they started Louisville at Orlando, Arkansas State, Mississippi, at Mississippi.
So, Steve, I mean, that's all great, and I agree with you. The schedule on paper doesn't look all that good, but if they run the table, does it really matter?
Yeah, it does when they don't play anybody. Let's take a chance.
Hey, Steve, I am no longer going to respond to Yankees when they call in and they say that Alabama doesn't play anyone, because I'm not just waving this flag because I live down here, but an SEC schedule, depending on the year, can be either tough or brutal, and I don't know what it will be yet. Then you'll have to play a championship game just to qualify for the 14 playoffs. So, I mean, I think for you to make that comment on April 20th, with all due respect, it's just pure ignorance.
It's way too ahead of time. I know it is, Paul.
Well, so don't make it then. Go outside and build a snowman, okay?
No, there's no snow here, hon. It's about 70 degrees outside right now.
Well, good. Go outside and get a suntan.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
As a newspaper columnist, I covered this young man winning a national championship. I covered his last game when he caught a touchdown pass to beat Ohio State with under a minute to go. I'm talking about Sherman Williams. Those were the highlights of his career. Unfortunately for him and his family, it all went astray. He went to prison for 15 years, and he is now out. And he's talking about it in 2 books, Crimson Cowboy. He also played for the Cowboys for 4 years. And Crimson Cowboy Volume 2. It's between the lines. So let's talk to Sherman about this experience. And we say hello to Sherman Williams. Sherman, thank you for the time. It has been way too long. Good afternoon.
Hey, Paul, how you doing? Good afternoon to you. Paul, do you remember a place in Mobile, Alabama called the Russo's?
Oh, sure, by all means.
Oh, yeah. I remember way back a long time ago, about 25 years ago, you and I used to sit back there in those dark corners and have interviews at hours at a time. And I remember those times when old Paul Finebaum was just a local kid out of Alabama and just writing in the Alabama columns. But now, SEC Network, ESPN, man, you have come a long way. And I know that everyone is very proud to be associated with you and with your show. And I'm glad that you took time to give me an opportunity to speak to the people and share some of my testimony and what God has done for me in my life.
Well, Sherman, thank you very much. And as you well know, when you go out and share your message, you have to talk about what got you to today. And I want to do that with you for a second. Let's first talk about you growing up in that area. You were a high school star. You were high school player of the year before you matriculated to Alabama. Let's stop right there for a second. I mean, you had the world by the tail even before you went to Alabama.
Yeah, we won games when I was in high school. I led my high school state championship team to the Class 5A state championship in 1990. You know, I started playing sports and all sports at a very young age and had great deals of success at an early age. But, you know, growing up in the area that I'm from, Pritchard, Alabama, you know, there's a lot of negative stigmas associated with the community, the culture, you know, crime and criminal behavior and those types of things. So being a product of that environment, coming out and having poor associations, making poor decisions and that type of thing, being influenced by the wrong atmosphere, it's just a great thing that has played out in my journey, my life's journey, that has helped me become the person that I am today.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. So you go to Alabama, and obviously we all know what happened there. You're part of a national championship. You make that great catch from Jay Barker. Was that down in Orlando, I believe, at the end of the '94 season? You go to the Cowboys. You win a ring, Super Bowl ring. I mean, you had everything going for you. Would that be a fair statement?
Well, it was a great experience, and you are correct with the championships and having things going in my favor. And it was, yeah, I would say that you would be correct in that statement.
So I want to take something that you said earlier about where you grew up, and I've been there. It is a tough area, but yeah. You were making good money. You were living in Dallas. You were playing for the Cowboys. What happened?
Well, Paul, it's one of those things where I talk about in our organization, the Palmer Williams Group, that you will develop those habits. You know, bad habits die hard, and you get bad habits, and between the age of 9 and 14, you start to learn different behaviors. You get peer groups. You get involved in the wrong circle, and those habits were very hard for me personally, from a personal experience, to break, and just carried on from my adolescence years until my young adult life, and then even in my professional life. And I made some poor decisions, Paul, and I really think that if things were different, I probably made some different choices, but life has been good and life has had its challenges. So with all of that, I just think that everything happens for a reason, and the thing that I went through has a great story, great testimony about overcoming obstacles, making it to the highest level of your profession, and winning a Super Bowl in the NFL, and also serving jail time. So, well,
let's do this in chronological order, Sherman, because I don't think people are going to understand how you're back to where you are now without understanding how you got there. You were found guilty in federal court in Mobile to 1 count of conspiracy to distribute marijuana, 2 counts of attempting to possess marijuana with an intent to distribute. You also pled guilty to a counterfeiting charge. You were sentenced to 15 years. At that moment, did you think your life was over?
At that moment, I knew that it was going to be a challenge. But being over, I talk about having a champion's heart.
No, Sherman, hold on a second. I apologize for interrupting you. I realize this is your story, but I'm trying to understand it, and I really think to understand it, I have to understand what happened to you and then how you were rehabilitated, if you don't mind.
Being rehabilitated is a statement, but having been rehabilitated first, learning those habits and picking up those bad habits, and then going through what I went through of serving a 15-year federal prison sentence, and then being able to come out on this side now and use what I've learned from going through those experiences to be able to help other people. And that is the most important thing about the journey, being able to use my full personal experience.
So Sherman, help us understand, because I know a lot of young people are out there listening right now or watching us.
Right.
It's one thing to get in trouble and to get away with it, but you didn't get away with it. You went to prison for 15 years. What was that like?
It was a terrible, tough situation. It was a position that I wouldn't wish on anyone to have to go through those circumstances, or anyone who's out there listening right now. If you have an opportunity to make the right choice, do the right thing, because there are consequences that comes from making poor decisions. And I made some poor decisions. I lived through the consequences, and it's a very tough situation. During that time of incarceration, I lost my mother. I wasn't able to attend her funeral. Those types of things are once in a lifetime. My kids graduated from high school, wasn't able to attend. So the life memories of good occasions, even being able to be there for people who need you to be there. When you're in prison, you can't be there. And it's a hard thing. It's a hard lesson to learn. But hopefully my experience will be able to help some of these kids out here that may be on the edge, or maybe wanting to make that decision, or maybe don't know the consequences that come from it, and they can read my story and learn from my mistakes, so hopefully they can make different decisions.
Sherman, you get out, and you know the statistics better than I do, but there's a high probability of of people to get out of prison to get in trouble again. How did you overcome that? You talked about bad habits that helped get you in prison. How have you stayed on the straight and narrow?
Staying on the straight and narrow, Paul, is you have to change. You have to change your lifestyle. You have to change your circle. You have to change the people, your influences. If you look in your influences and you see the people that you're associated with, that's a direct reflection of your own personal character. So I had to make a lot of lifestyle changes and change my elements, change the people I associate with, associate people that are going in the direction that I know is the right direction, in the direction that I want my life to go in. And that's what it's going to take. And those kids and out there, and you building those friendships and those relationships, you have to build relationships with the type of people that are going in the same direction that you want your life to go in.
What are you doing now?
Right now, I have a nonprofit organization called the Palmer Williams Group. I partner with my good friend and brother David Palmer, and we have youth development programs that go out in the community, help kids get involved in Life Sync Academy, dealing with social skills, also help them with the financial literacy program, and also wrote 2 books, The Crimson Cowboy, and go out and use the book as a testimony, but also as a fundraiser for our organization. We have youth development programs, but also athletic programs through sports and athletics with female and male. So we try to get the kids involved and also do motivational and public speaking, go out and speak to different groups, community action groups, and faith-based programs. We are a faith-based program, and we definitely believe in the message and testimony of Jesus Christ. So we just try to stay active in the community and use what God have given us and try to use it for a benefit for society.
Sherman, before you go, and I want to reiterate how many young people, kids, teenagers, watch and listen to this show. If you had a final message for them, what would it be?
My final message for them would be get your education. Education is something that no one could take from you. Myself, Paul, I had to go back to school myself. I will be graduating on May the 5th of 2018 with my bachelor's degree from the University of Alabama, and I have learned in my travels, in my journey, that education will take you further than anything else here that you can do. So I would say concentrate on your education, put your education, but always have a spiritual life and put God first. But here, education is very important, and associate yourself with the right people.
Well, Sherman, congratulations on getting your degree. That's certainly a major step forward. Congratulations on your books, and we really appreciate you sharing your story. The books, again, 2 volumes of Crimson Cowboy. The second volume is out. Hope you'll come back. Really appreciate your time.
Definitely, Paul. I have a 3rd volume that will be on the way, so people can always follow us on crimsoncowboy.com and find out all the information about where we're located, what we're doing, and how we're getting things done.
Thank you, Sherman. Best wishes.
Thanks, Paul. God.
I've been a writer my entire life. I've only had 2 books. This guy's got 3. I need to get going to keep up with Sherman. Anyway, great story there. Really appreciate him coming on.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
And we welcome all of you back. It's been a good one. Jimbo Fisher joining us earlier. We talked to Sherman Williams. He spent 15 years incarcerated and now out, and talking about it in a series of books. Your phone calls at 855-242-7285, 855-242-7285. We had Dan Mullen on yesterday while we were over in Georgia, so we want to follow that up by bringing Pat Dooley on, a longtime writer in Gainesville, also talk show host. And Pat, thanks for being with us. Hope the spring has gone well. Good afternoon.
Is that legal to do that when you're in Georgia, to put Dan Mullen on your TV show?
Yeah, well, I purposely turned all the TVs to the Big Ten Network so they could keep up with what was going on in lacrosse.
That's funny, though. I mean, yeah, good. It's kind of been a weird weather-wise summer here, or spring here, but ball coach is out in the golf course right now with his golf tournament. So
was that going on today? Wow.
Yeah, he actually got to meet with Jesse earlier today. Jesse, he said Jesse was telling me how he went all the way through his entire drive against Tennessee in 2000. So he remembers everything. You know that.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, listen. So before we get to Florida football, let's talk about Spurrier back in coaching again. You know him as well as anyone. I know he's excited, but give us the Gator react to that.
Well, I mean, I think when he first brought it up, and we first were talking about it, I could tell he was serious about it. That it was the perfect situation for him. 4.5 months. They're going to rent a condo. I talked to Jerry last night. They're going to rent a condo down there and stay down there, and they're excited about it. All he has to do is coach. You know, there's no recruiting. There's no glad handing and all that. So he's fired up. I think he is already recruiting some former Gators to come and play for him. How exciting it'll be, you know. I mean, the USFL was really a good league. I love that league. He coached in that. It was fun, but I don't know if this is going to get to that level. But I think Gator fans will pay attention. I'm not sure they're going to be too excited about it, depending on who he gets. For example, as you know, if he gets Tebow, which I don't think he will, it's just my gut, now all of a sudden the stakes go up. You know, and everybody goes, whoa, we got 2/3 of the statues out there.
Well, but hold on a second. Let's talk about Tebow, and we know what he's doing now. We know what he's done in the past. I mean, I have my own view. I'll let you offer one. You've already given us a clue, but why would Tim Tebow accept this opportunity?
I don't think he will, and I think he's dedicated to trying to do this baseball thing, and he's got so much else going on in his life, whether it's the SEC network or commercials and other work he's doing, and obviously charitable work he's doing, that I don't know that he has any interest in playing in a league that he's still not sure about. None of us are sure about. I mean, I kind of like the concept of it, of being kind of a minor league for the NFL. That's what it's been sold as. That's what Steve was telling me. He says, you know, we think that people want to watch football, and I agree. I want to watch football too, and I would love to watch. I think all Gator fans here would love to watch Tebow. I would love to watch him as a sports writer, to go down there and write columns on him. But I don't know that that's something that he's going to be that interested in. Now, Tim is, I can't understand why he went to baseball when he did, but at the same time, so my gut is he won't play in that league, but we'll see.
Let's get to something realistic, and that's what's happening on the field in Gainesville. Give us your view of the quarterback situation.
Well, they're down to 3 now. They had 4. One of them transferred 2 days ago, which was no big surprise. He was not fit for the system they run. And Jake Allen, he was more of a drop-back kind of guy, and certainly wasn't going to play. And so, but it's still another tenuous situation. If you remember, in Jim McElwain's first year, they had 2 quarterbacks, and Treon Harris and Will Greer, and eventually they were down to 1 quarterback and some walk-ons, and so they're now in a situation where they've got 3, and one of them's a true freshman. One of them has never played college, and one of them played and wasn't very good in college. So it's still not a great situation. I think a lot of people that's why it's like, I think the Gator Nation is excited and energized by Dan Mullen. I think he's done all the right things, going and talking every chance he's gotten to go speak to people, whether it's fraternities or, whether it's young people or old people, middle people, everybody. He's firing it up, and he's got a lot of energy and doing the right things that way, bringing the players back. They had 170 players at their barbecue on the day of the spring game. Florida's doing a lot of great things, out there at the stadium to get people excited, but that's still the caveat. Do they have a quarterback? And nobody knows for sure. There's nothing we saw in the spring game that was said, oh, wow, they do. They got this guy. He's really good. That just didn't happen. They manufactured a lot of points. They threw touchdown passes to Travis McGriff and Lawrence Wright, and that tells you something right there. But, if he can figure it out between now, and he's talked about it, he's got to get a guy who's going to get the work done without him watching, basically between now and August 4th, and then take over the job. And I'm not sure which one it's going to be. I think it's kind of a crapshoot right now.
Everything looked really exciting, and the vibe is great, and we've been down this road before. How would you compare this portion of the new tenure? And I realize he was following Urban, but how would you compare this to Will Muschamp?
Certainly different. I don't think, you've got to understand that Will walked into a situation where there was a lot of attitude, and there was a president basically sitting in his office when he walked in the door saying, we got to clean this mess up. And it was a mess. There's no doubt about it. And, the famous Urban Meyer quote, this program's broken. And it was broken. So that was a big part of what he had to do. This program is not broken. It just doesn't have the talent it used to have. And obviously when you go 4-7, it's not a good thing. But there were a lot of extenuating circumstances. You had the 9 guys, the knucklehead 9, as I call them, who were didn't play at all last year. Really good players that hurt them, and then you had a ton of injuries, and then you had a coach get fired in the middle of the season. So, I think they've got better players than that. I think they got better talent. I see an 8-win team right now, like 8-4 is what I would say. But there's nothing to say they can't do better than that, and there's nothing to say they're gonna do that either. I think the schedule's not bad. It's manageable, but there's still a lot of losable games, and I don't know that there are very many that aren't winnable either.
We heard Dan say yesterday that the only game he really cares about is Charleston Southern. Not that anybody believes that. The game at Mississippi State has drawn a lot of attention, but help me understand this game here, November 10th. I was down there when Muschamp showed back up for the first time. It really wasn't that big of a deal, but this will be a little bit different. How would it go over if Will Muschamp walked in there and beat Dan Mullen first time out, or would it matter?
I don't think it matters. I think people are over that. They've already been through a coach since then, since Muschamp was here. So and I think most people really liked Will, and I think there's at least a group of people who thought, man, if this was another place, they could have given Will a couple more years, and he might have been able to get this thing going in the right direction. But the negativity got to be too much while he was here in his fourth year.
Okay. What about Pat? If Florida meets Michigan in a bowl game, does that up the ante a little bit with McElwain on the other side?
We should be the ones setting up the bowl games. I think you know that. We would have some great battles. I mean, Texas A&M, FSU's a lock, right? We got to have that game. So, there's a lot of things going on out there with different coaches and everything, but I think it's more about the Florida Gator Nation has just been beaten down from when you have 2 4-win seasons in 5 years. I mean, even during the bad years, before Florida was winning SEC and national championships, that wasn't happening. They weren't losing 7 and 8 games in a 5-year stretch. So it's just been a kind of a weird deal here. And now Florida fans are hoping that Dan Mullen's going to build it back up. And I think they're going to be a little bit patient with him. But if Will comes in here and wins, I don't think they'd be that surprised. I think Will's doing a pretty good job up there.
A couple seconds left, and maybe because I'm Georgia-centric, having been there yesterday, but how is this Georgia resurgence playing in Gainesville?
I was watching the show earlier, and I think one of your callers said it right. Look, we've seen this before. I don't know that we've seen it at this level, this scale, where in the second year they're a play away from winning the national championship, and that then follow that up with a number 1 recruiting class. And I think everybody's kind of like waiting to see, is Georgia about to become the Alabama of the East, or are they going to be like the Mark Richt teams, where you never knew what you were going to get? You might win 10 games, but not win the East. You might win 9 games and not go to a great bowl game. There's a reason he got fired, with all the success he had. So I think I think the average fan that's kind of doesn't have a skin in it is basically saying, let's see what happens here. I don't think there's any question what could happen very positively for Georgia. I mean, I think they're going to have a really good team next year. But there's no guarantees, as we all know, in this game unless you're Alabama.
So true. Pat, always great to be with you. Thank you so much.
All right, Paul. We'll see you, buddy.
Pat Dooley, always nice enough to come on and always interesting. I'm sure the Georgia fans love that response. We are going to take a break. More of your phone calls. We have a long way to go. The author of the Jalen Hurts article, the one where he pretty much said his father said his son is going to be the biggest free agent in college football history. He'll join us next hour. We're back after this.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
We welcome you back. One more hour to go. It has been a fantastic week, and it's been a great show. We started off about 3 hours ago talking to Jimbo Fisher, the new coach of the Aggies. A lot to digest there. Sherman Williams later on, about 15 years in jail, former Alabama football star. But what has been the undercurrent of today's show as well as yesterday's, ever since the story first broke yesterday morning from Matt Hayes in the Bleacher Report, an exclusive interview with Jalen Hurts' father. Matt has broken so many major stories during his interviewing of athletes and coaches in the last couple of years, and it's great, absolutely great to welcome Matt back to the program. Matt, it seems like every couple of weeks I'm reading some firestorm about a quote from an interview that you have done. Good afternoon.
Thanks, man. You're too kind. How you doing, Paul?
We're doing great. So let's just set the stage. I mean, this is certainly a fascinating conversation. It's not unusual to hear people talk about Jalen Hurts and Tua, but it is extremely interesting to hear such strong comments from his dad. Put your story and your interview in context for us.
Paul, I think it kind of comes down to three levels. I think first and foremost, and Aaron Hurts was very clear about this, and he, Jalen feels the same way. Jalen opened the door to this. Jalen played poorly in that game. He opened the door for Tua to get a chance, and Aaron made that clear over and over and over again. If you want to blame someone, you blame Jalen because he's the guy that opened the door. I think number two, Aaron's the head coach. He's a very successful head coach in high school. He gets it. He's been through this situation before with players, certainly not at this level, at the level of college football, but he understands the idea of if some guy comes in because the other guy played poorly or the other guy is injured, this is what happens. Guys get their opportunity, they seize the moment, and this is what happens. And I think thirdly, Aaron is also a dad. He is a dad who, is trying to help his son. So I think there's different levels to look at this thing, and I think we shouldn't get lost in the idea of, Jalen may transfer if he doesn't win the job. I think the reality is Aaron, his family, Jalen, they all know Jalen is the reason this happened. So now it's up to Jalen to work himself out of it.
And, of course, the quote heard around the college football world involved what he said about being the big greatest free agent. I want to make sure I understand it, and I think I do, having done this once or twice. But I want to make sure you explain to the audience this was not the first thing he said when you walked in there. This was part of a conversation. Yeah, it's the quote that has gotten all the attention and the one that got Nick Saban to react to. So help us by taking us through the interview and how and when that quote arrived.
Well, when we spoke for 4 or 5 hours, we had lunch, we went back to his office, we talked. It's an entire process. It's not just simply where you walk in and say, "Is your son going to transfer?" That's just, I mean, that might be journalism now with a lot of people.
Probably
that's
is.
not
yeah.
how I do journalism. It's not how I've ever done journalism. Okay, and I like to talk to people, and I got a hold of Aaron over the phone. I said, "Aaron, look, I don't want to talk to you over the phone. I want to come out to Houston and talk to you." He said, "Great." So I flew out and we talked, and it's believe me, he when he said that, he definitely does not like the idea of it because he loves Alabama. More importantly, his son loves Alabama. His son loves everything Alabama, loves Nick Saban, loves the idea of playing at Alabama. That's not even in question. He loves it there. The reality is his son wants to play quarterback. He doesn't want to move the tight end. He doesn't want to move the H-back. The idea that he's going to move there, or the idea, I read in AL.com that Mel Kiper said he's never going to play quarterback in the NFL, and I talked to an NFL scout and said the first thing the guy said was, "Who the hell is Mel Kiper?" And then he said, "Look, the kid has 2 more years to play in college. He can get coached. He certainly has the ability to make strides. He has things he has to work on. But if you got a guy that wins like he does, that has the character that he does, that knows the game like he does, that studies the game like he does, why would you ever say the kid's never going to play quarterback? So I think you have to look at this thing in its entirety, and I think it's very easy to take out that one quote and say, oh, this is what we base this on. It's so much more than that, Paul. And I think the reality is, again, like I said earlier, it's up to Jalen now. Jalen has to get himself out of that. There's no doubt about it.
Saban said last night in reaction to your story, in reaction to that quote, that he and Coach had a good conversation last week, a very positive conversation, and you have to take him for what he said. But knowing what you do, you cover college football at the highest level. You watch Alabama like we all do. You've spent time with Coach Hurts. How do you see, and what are the variables involved in how this could play out?
Well, I can tell you this. Everybody always makes fun of Nick and he's this hardball. And believe me, Paul, he's one of my favorite guys because he never, ever lies. So I can guarantee you what Nick said is exactly what happened. So I believe that 100%, okay? So I think it's as simple as, look, let's see how this plays out. Let's see what happens in the summer, how these guys perform, how they work out, how they throw with the other guys. Let's get into fall camp, see how this works. There's only one guy that knows what's going to happen this fall, and that's Nick. And he will make the decision. And once he makes the decision, whoever doesn't win the job will have a decision to make.
In the case of Jalen Hurts, if he stays at Alabama, is he on schedule to graduate at the end of the season? Do you know?
He will graduate in December.
Okay.
So what? This is the kind of the spot he's in right now, and we say the spot, but the reality is he's graduating in 3 years. That's another thing you talked about. This kid literally is just the perfect, and I talked to Damian Harris about it, and Damian said he is literally exactly what Nick wants out of his players, to the T, on the field, in the weight room, in the classroom, in the community. He is exactly what Nick wants. He said he's never seen anyone like him. Maybe the closest person would be Minkah Fitzpatrick. So he's getting ready to graduate in 3 years. So he could stay there as a backup if he doesn't win the job. And Paul, again, I'm not saying he's not going to win the job. I'm just saying if he doesn't, he could stay there as a backup and then go play as a grad transfer in his final year. Or he can say, you know what, I want to play 2 years. So then you say if he doesn't win the job, then you say, you know what, I'm going to leave and I'm going to redshirt this year. Then I'm going to play in 19 and 20.
And again, you can digest that and unpack it any way you want, but it seems logical, or maybe I'm too far away, that you give it a shot, you play this year, and then you graduate and you go wherever you want to play.
Yeah, I don't. What's logical with you and I, Paul, is not logical in the mind of Jalen, of Avron, of Nick. I mean, it's completely different, and I wouldn't fault Jalen at all if for some reason he doesn't win the job. And again, I hate talking like this, Paul, because everybody has this idea that Jalen is losing that job, and I'm just not buying that. I'm not buying the guy who says every drive should end in a kick, a punt, a field goal, and an extra point. Every drive should end that way, and he's going to give everything to a kid who's played 2 quarters, all right, and who has not been game planned yet. Every defensive coordinator in the SEC will spend 9 months until September game planning everything he does. So, and you know what you have with Jalen. You don't know what you have with the other guy. So I'm not buying it yet. But let's just say something happens and Jalen is not the quarterback. I think if you truly want to play in the NFL, and that's what his goal is, he wants to play quarterback in the NFL, I think you get as many reps as you can at the college level. And that would mean that, you don't play this year there.
Makes sense. Listen, I'm so glad you came on because I know your background because we've known each other a long time. It's so interesting and quite frankly refreshing to hear someone go out, do a story the right way, research it, become involved in understanding the personalities, and then present it and disseminate it in an intelligent fashion. Great stuff, Matt, as always. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Paul. My pleasure.
Really an interesting story. If you have, you need to read this article. And I know too many people just look at the headline and come to a conclusion. But I think you heard a lot there from Matt. I mean, he looks at it from both sides, which is what a journalist is supposed to do. One of convenience would be leave at the end of the season and pick your school. A lot of speculation out there even now about where he could end up. Or you say, you know what, I'm a really good player. I could spend a year perfecting my craft as a pocket passer and then spend 2 more years. But when you're at Alabama and you've been the starter for 2 years, that is fairly difficult to do.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network beginning at 3 Eastern.